Hey y'all, it's Desiree and I'm back with another video. And for this video, God is saying this is your divine turnaround. In some of my recent videos, God has been speaking about looking back, going back, allowing him to take you back and remind you what it is that you've went through, what it is that he's brought you through. And in the meantime, he has been speaking to me divine turnaround, but he hadn't led me to release a word regarding it yet. And it wasn't until I went back to my hometown recently that this word truly came full circle for me, and I knew that it was time to release it. While I was there, I visited the neighborhood that I grew up in. I drove by the houses that I grew up in. I went in some of the old stores I used to shop in all the time. Even some old stores, old places that since a child. But yet and still, I felt like that place was so foreign to me. I felt like I was somewhere I had never been before. Even though I know this place like the back of my hand, it felt as though I had never been there before. I felt so detached from that place, and it was such a strange experience. In the past, when I would visit my hometown, I would have mixed emotions, mixed feelings, It would remind me of things that I kind of don't want to be reminded about. But this time was different. It's almost as if I needed to come back and see where I started to truly realize where I am in order to further perceive where it is that I'm going. Because just like I said in that camp crossover video, sometimes when God brings you out of the wilderness and puts you in a temporary place, we have the tendency of believing that we are still amongst ruin. But when we go back and view the dead body, when we go back and view the remains, when we go back and view where we once started, it's then that we are truly capable of understanding that we are no longer where we once started. And the entire time, all I could hear in my spirit was divine turnaround, divine turnaround. If I didn't have that old neighborhood to drive through, if I didn't have those old schools to drive past, I wouldn't even believe it. Because it's absolutely no reason why I should be where I am today when that's where I started. I'd like to think that I'm smart. I'd like to think that I'm wise. I'd like to think that I'm persistent, that I'm diligent. But ain't no way I could have got me from over there to here. It's only God, only the Most High, a divine turnaround. It was something about going back that made me know that I know. I knew then, but now I know now that God has been in every detail, that God has been every step of the way, that even when it looked a mess, even when I was out here looking like what I was going through, even when they counted me out, even when I counted myself out, God was in the details, and God is saying, this is the divine turnaround. And I know that's going to be confirmation for someone that God has also taken back. Maybe not physically. Maybe he just took you back in memory. Maybe you ran across some old photos. Maybe you ran across some old journals. Maybe you heard an old song that took you back, and you have come to realize, wait a minute, ooh, I am no longer where I once was. God has been speaking to me 360. And I was a little confused because I thought, well, that's a full circle and you would end up right back where you started. Wouldn't it be a 180? But then God began to explain to me, this is the 180. If this video is for you, you are at the 180. You have made a complete change. And I really feel on my spirit 6 months. God is saying to look back 6 months and compare it to where you are now. As well as look back 6 years and compare it to where you are now. God is saying that there are many divine turnarounds amongst the grand divine turnaround. And I saw people turning around in a complete circle, stopping, then turning around in a complete circle again, just over and over and over, spinning in one place, but also spinning in a complete circle, almost like the sun. And I know that God is saying through that there has been many turnarounds amongst this divine turnaround. But after this next 180, your transfiguration will be complete. you will be complete and you will be ready to move forward. The first 180 required you to get your hands dirty. The first 180 required you to get down in the mud. The first 180 required you to fight back. But this next 180 is all God. This next 180 is the divine turnaround. The first 180 was about the inner man. The next 180 is about the outer man. This next 180 doesn't just transfigure you further spiritually, it transfigures you physically. I saw a black butterfly the other day, and on the ends of its wings, it was orange. And I felt that God was saying through that, in this time, God is giving somebody's wings color. That butterfly had already been transfigured from the inside, and God was using that butterfly to represent. And now it's time for the glory inside to match the outside. And now it's time for the inner glory to be displayed. Because for a lot of you, you're going back to where you once were, but not the same as you left. For some of you, after you complete this next 180, you're going back to some of those old places. You're going back to some of the places that God called you out of. You're going back to some of the places that God called you away from. Because it was never about God trying to change you. God knew how He wired you. It was about Him turning you around, turning that affliction around, so He can send you back to where you first started. So He can send you back to the people who live the same lifestyles as you used to, who indulge in the same things as you used to, who cry the same tears as you used to, who sit around heavy, burdened in hopelessness like you used to. Because Joseph hit a 180 in that prison, and when God released the inner glory that He had hidden in him for a time such as then to be displayed, He sent him back to his brothers. He sent him back to where he once started. Somebody needs to fix their attitude, because God is sending you back to where you once started. I hope that you allow God to work out that unforgiveness in your heart, if there is any, because you're going back to where you once started. Somebody needs to see you. Somebody waiting to see you do it so that they can do it. Somebody's needing to see you do it so that they can believe that it's possible for them. Some of the same ones who criticize you, they're secretly waiting to see you do it. They're upset with you in their heart, saying, why haven't you did it so that I can find my faith again? Why hasn't the Lord done it so that I can find my strength again? God is sending you back to where you once started. He's not sending you back how you left. They're going to have to talk to you different. They're going to have to come at you different. They're going to have to approach you different. And there's an assignment that comes with it. The word says that Lazarus was kicked back, lounging at the table with Jesus, but it was an assignment that came with it. Yes, your life is about to be completely changed. Yes, your life is going to be restored. Yes, God is restoring the fortunes of Zion, but there's an assignment that comes with it. God says you are not making a comeback, you are making a turnaround. God says you always had it. It was always in you. You didn't have to go find it. Didn't nobody have to pray it on you. Didn't nobody have to lay hands on you. Didn't nobody have to anoint you. All He needed to do was turn you around. Some of y'all found confidence right up under the very affliction that robbed you of it. All He had to do was turn you around. And I feel on my spirit that some of y'all think that y'all changed because the situation changed. No, the situation changed because you changed. The situation changed because God turned you around. My focus changed once He turned me around. My understanding changed once He turned me around. I understood that I could sit down, I could lay down once He turned me around. I realized I could trust Him. I realized all is well once He turned me around. I started to see that same curse as a blessing once He turned me around. God is saying, look back. You do not think the same. God is saying, look back. You do not feel the same. God is saying, look back. Your heart is changed. He turned your heart around. Some of y'all don't have no business smiling. Some of y'all don't have no business having joy. Some of y'all have no business laying around in peace. Some of y'all have no business going to bed in peace. Some of y'all have no business sitting up talking about God is good. Because if they seen how you cried, if they seen how you was stressed out, if they seen how you was losing weight, if they seen how your hair was falling out, if they seen how you couldn't get up out that bed, if they seen everything that the enemy thought he took from you, everything you thought that you lost, could no counselor touch this pain? A divine turnaround. Wasn't no medication gonna fix this pain? Divine turnaround. Your heart is changed. Then the other day, I also saw a black butterfly, a complete black butterfly. Black butterflies are one of the rarest, if not the rarest, butterflies to see, and they can represent death. And I know that when God shows me black butterflies, it represents a spiritual death. Anytime I see a black butterfly, something is dying spiritually, and something new is taking its place. God is saying that there has been a spiritual death. And I feel on my spirit that a lot of you don't even recognize the change. You feel it, you can see it to a certain extent, but not to the full extent. But in this next 180, God is revealing you to you. He wants you to see your wings. And I keep hearing new creation. Some of you are not going to be able to fully understand that you are a new creation until God completes this next 180. I truly feel that a lot of you are not going to recognize yourself in the next 6 months. For some of you, in the next 6 days, you are not going to recognize yourself. A divine turnaround, because God finishes what he started, and it's not just about you. Because God finishes what he started, and it don't matter what they talking about. It don't matter what you talking about. Thank God that it's not in your own strength, and God is turning you around. Thank God that you don't have to look to yourself for all the answers, and it's God that's turning you around. Thank God that you don't have to make sense of all the details, because it's God himself who's turning you around. Joseph didn't have to worry about how much money he had. Joseph didn't have to worry about how many subscribers he had. Joseph didn't have to worry about whether or not they really thought he was anointed. They really thought he was chosen. He didn't have to go looking for nobody. The cupbearer may have forgotten him, but God didn't. And I feel on that for somebody. Don't be dismayed if you don't have any support. Don't be dismayed if you don't have anybody standing with you. Don't be dismayed if it seems like nobody sees the vision, if it seems like nobody believes in the end result. You don't need a cupbearer. You don't need somebody to put in a good word for you. You don't need anybody to recognize you, to see what God has put in you. God knows what he has put in you. God knows what he has stored in you for a time such as this. God didn't give them the dream. He gave you the dream. God didn't give them the vision. He gave you the vision. God didn't speak that word to them. He spoke that word to you for a time such as this. Let God vouch for you. A lot of us want God to get the glory out of our lives. We need to understand that in order for God to get the glory, you have to remain humbled. You have to remain lowly until God calls you out to be displayed. But hold on to that promise, Joseph. Stay committed to his will, Joseph. Trust him at his word, Joseph. Praise right there in that prison, Joseph. Who cares about what it looks like? Who cares if you look crazy? Thank him in that prison, Joseph. Hold on to your hope, even if you got to stand alone, Joseph, because this is the divine turnaround.